Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Ba 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 bum 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 bum. Da-da. What's up? Howdy, howdy. Hey, so nice to see all of you on this, what is actually officially a bonus stream. I wasn't actually intending to stream today, but because of some stuff yesterday, I had to move back an appointment to today, and why not stream a little around that, you know? Tomorrow we'll be doing, we'll be playing video games. And a reminder to everyone, by the way, that if you're missing out on the video game streams, you're missing out, period, okay? A lot of good content there. You know, you can see it on the clip channels. You see in any of my clip channels, any of the, like, 5 clip channels that I have now? These video game streams, they're just chock full of good memes that I don't upload. 5 is a lot, fam. I'd like to believe that I produce good content and that I'm, you know, that it's fun to watch me. That's my personal belief, you know? I unironically really like your video game streams. I unironically really like you, generic Eric797. How's everyone doing? Is that from my phone? No, okay. I thought I heard a noise. Sorry, I didn't know if it was my phone ringing. Yeah, true. Yes, the video game streams are very fun. How's everyone doing? I've been having a lot of fun today. We went out, you know, because we're starting stream late. We did some early stuff, and later on, I think I'm gonna go clothes shopping in person. Ugh, imagine. But the only new clothes that I've got for the past year and a half are like anime shirts that I've ordered online. But you got to do what you got to do. The real reason why, actually, is that I've lost so much weight that all my shorts just fall right off me now, unless it's the basketball shorts that I'm wearing now, which I've owned for like a decade. And here's the thing, I can't actually wear these basketball shorts in person, like around town, you know? First of all, they're like ratty basketball shorts. It's just not that fashionable. And second of all, and most importantly, yeah, okay, yeah. Second of all, and most importantly, okay? Here's the real problem. Now, you can't see this because of the way the camera is and just the bifocal lens and everything, but I actually, while I think making Warhammer miniatures a long time ago, I got super glue on the crotch of these basketball shorts. And if you know anything about what super glue does to clothing, there's now just a permanent like black spot, like right there, you know? So yeah, it looks like a permanent cum stain basically because it's a wicking material, so water wouldn't even leave a visible mark. But yeah, what army did you paint? I have some Adeptus Mechanicus behind me. Not super glue, whatever the glue they use, the plastic glue they use for that. But yeah, you cannot get that off of clothing. You can't do it. Boss, show them my super glue dick stain or the Warhammer miniatures. I'm going to assume the Warhammer miniatures. You guys notice the chat's being a bit stuttery? Is that just me? I guess we could, yeah, a little bit. Hold on. Hold on. I'm pretty sure I've shown these off before, but yeah, hold on. They're a little. We need the camera to agree with me here, though. Can we get the focal length a little bit? We get, we get the camera that I got. It's good at a lot of things, but one of them is not like up close autofocus. Can we get? Okay. Hold that. We like. We block my face. It should be the auto detection won't go directly to it. Yeah. You painted them? Well, yeah, you want them to look good, right? This big lad ain't painted, but Warhammer miniatures are so darn cool. Show my boy. Yes, yes. And a hyena put this together. This is from Age of Sigmar, not Warhammer 40,000. As you can see, it's a large boy. Yeah, the Age of Sigma male. Yep. There are a few others, but you know. There we go. Whew. How are we doing today? Good? Good, I hope. Not a super crowded stream today in terms of the orientation of our content. Actually, I thought it would be nice if we just... Well, let's talk about Candace Owens, huh? You misspelled Candace's name in the title. Wait, did I? Oh, I totally did. Oh my god, I didn't even... Well, I think that's an appropriate level of disrespect, all things considered, right? Wonder why the chat is stuttering like that. I'll talk to White Nervosa about it. Do you ever want to watch Bill Maher videos to get mad at him? I mean, we can. I like going over content. You know? Content is fun. I do like going over videos. You know? Sheesh, look at that. No, it's stuttering for me on my end a little too, on my chat, not just on the screen. Yeah, more like Bill Marnt. True. Did I see TYT's response to the door? I have never once in my life seen the Young Turks video. Nope, not once. Not once. Okay, this stuttering is getting annoying. Hold on. Calling my goon squad. There we go. Yeah. Calling the Bogdanovs. Yeah, my solution? I simply eliminate all of you. That way there's nobody to witness the stuttering. Yeah, but they do have good takes, so maybe watch it. I'm sure I would agree with them on some stuff. No denying it. It's just they're a little bit Libby for me. What's up? I mean, not to say there's no value in the content of, you know, liberal political commentators, because there often is. It's just why don't they ever close the door gently? Why do they slam? Why do they slam the door? Are empaths a real thing? No, they are not. They are not a real thing. Let's talk, folks. So, I'm occasionally accused, you're not going to believe this, of calling people Nazis too often. And it's a criticism that I disagree with because I feel like I normally substantiate my argument, you know, pretty well. So I want to be really clear about this, okay? Now, I'm not saying that Candace Owens is one. I'm only saying that this argument really feels like a Nazi argument, you know? That it's a feeling that I have. I'm sharing my feelings with you. Do not invalidate my feelings. That's no bueno, okay? Anyway, I saw a screenshot of this tweet cycling around, and I'm not joking when I say this. I actually thought that it was a joke or that it was like a fake tweet, like somebody had made it up to exaggerate Candace Owens' horrible positions. But, well, here it is. To politicians across the world, black Americans are considered the dumbest ethnic group with the lowest emotional IQ. In other words, the easiest political pawns to destabilize America from the inside out. Then we have then we have a 14-minute happy Juneteenth. Thank you, Candace Owens. But let's focus on the tweet for a second, if I may. Now, again, I don't think, my personal belief is that Candace Owens doesn't actually believe anything at all. That's my personal opinion, you know? But Candace Owens has said weird stuff about, like, Hitler before, for example. Candace Owens has said that, like, Hitler's problem wasn't what he did in Germany. It was when he started invading other countries, or like, yeah, she called Hitler a globalist, essentially. And there's a lot of other really weird stuff in there. And again, Candace Owens, why do you think Candace Owens is a grifter but not legit? Because Candace Owens sued a school for racial discrimination for tens of thousands of dollars like a decade ago. And now she argues there's no such thing as racial discrimination and she's never experienced it. Like, I think she's one of the people I'd feel comfortable saying is a grifter because there's such an obvious and direct contradiction between the things she believes and the things she says, you know? Recently, Candace Owens' brother actually made it big. Candace Owens' brother was at some like PTA meeting for parents, and he went up there and he said, "I have like a medical degree and this, you know, and how can I be oppressed when I'm successful?" And he said, like, "I'm just a parent, you know." But it was Candace Owens' brother. Does anyone have a link to that? And also, I don't think he actually has a medical degree. I think he may have lied about that a little bit. Bosch, Candace Owens answers questions on nationalism, denies that Hitler was a nationalist, immediately makes a blood and soil argument by saying she has concerns about birth rate in the UK. Interesting. Is that 3829?
Yeah, so in the current age, I feel like the political debate stems around nationalism and globalism, which, however, they're weaponized within the media.
Curious.
I feel especially in Europe and like in America, these movements are being energized. Do you feel the momentum will last? In regards to the EU, Guy Verhofstadt referred to his base of the movement as the summer of populism in quotation marks. But 2 years down the line, these governments are realizing there's a clear trajectory in the opposite, like the status against the status quo. How do you feel like the long-term like prognosis is for these particular movements?
And I think Candace Owens answers second there. So Charlie Kirk. Oh man, Charlie Kirk answers first.
The UK more over the last so
verbosely at that.
Don't want at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about at least in America is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism. And thinking about how it could go bad down the line.
I really wish the camera was on the audience right now, because if it was, I feel like at least a couple of people here would be doing double takes, you know?
I don't really have an issue with nationalism. I really don't. I think that it's okay. It's important to retain your country's identity and to make sure that what's happening here, which I think is incredibly worrisome in terms of the decrease in the birth rate that we're seeing in the UK, is what you kind of want to avoid. So I don't have anything I have no problems with nationalism.
Yeah, so a couple of suspect arguments here. Let's leave aside the questions of authenticity and sincere belief and just say that, well, I can't say Candace Owens is a Nazi, but I've heard those arguments from Nazis before. I'll say that much. Anyhow, the reason why I wanted to talk about this tweet specifically is because I wanted to talk a little bit about this theory, okay? So the thing is, and a lot of people don't understand this, is that not everybody who is a Nazi will tell you by looking you in the face and saying, "I'm a Nazi." Believe it or not, actually. A lot of them will not say that, and instead they'll make arguments that, if thought about or pursued to their logical conclusion, lead you to the same basic outcomes. This was a criticism that I had of Sargon of Akkad. We all remember? This was in one of the debates, the first or the second, I don't know. But here's something Sargon of Akkad believes. And Sargon of Akkad is an ethno-nationalist by his own admission. I don't know if you've seen the debate that I had with him, but he has said, like, very, very flatly, that he wants to restrict the population of England by the ethnic identities of the people who respond to the census. And, like, okay, ethnic state, ethno-state. So that's pretty straightforward. But anyway, Sargon of Akkad believes, and he said this, or Carl, that there is like an SJW conspiracy, that like SJWs have infiltrated academia, and they've infiltrated politics, and they've infiltrated corporations, and they're doing all of this because They don't like men, and they don't like white people very much either. And they're using their secretive influence from behind the scenes to attack those power groups, the white men. One of the ways they'll do this is through the promotion of globalization and immigration, including bringing in non-white people into these countries to force diversify them. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Nazi talking points, this is essentially the Jewish question. This is word for word what both the original Nazis believed and modern neo-Nazis believe. The ways in which they've like specifically contextualized the conspiracy theory change, because I mean it's been like 100 years since the Nazi Party first came about. But basically the argument is that Jewish people have infiltrated academia and the government and corporations, and that they're using their influence because they want to attack the Goyim, and they want to do so covertly. And here's the critical point to this argument. This is what Candace Owens essentially does right here. A very common Nazi argument is that the clever Jewish people will use the hordes of black and brown people to attack whites. Essentially, that black and brown people are like tools or servants of Jewish people, like instruments of revenge against the Goyim. This is a really, really, really common talking point in many far-right circles. Essentially, the idea that, like, when mass immigration brings, like, Mexican people and so on and so forth to America, that's not just a natural product of demographic shifts and economic systems leading towards further economic globalization. That's actually a very deliberate set of policies being brought about by Jewish people trying to destroy white people or whatever. Didn't Family Guy do a bit about this? Wait, actually, I think I remember this. I distinctly remember there being a Family Guy bit. I remember seeing this at some point, where it was something like how brave a disabled Nazi is. And it's like a guy with Down syndrome or something, but he's saying like, the Jews will not replace us. Black and brown people are being used as the Jews are using black and brown people to attack white people. Does anyone know what I'm talking about here? Oh God, if somebody can find that clip. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because this is well known enough of a conspiracy theory that like Family Guy was riffing off of it with the expectation that their massive audience would be familiar with those talking points. If anyone can find that little clip for me, I'll show it. I'll risk copyright because I'm just trying to point out, like, this isn't some like weird esoteric, you have to read 3 books deep to find this. This is like even Family Guy is pointing out that this was a, hold on. Oh goodness, is this it? Hold on. I might just have to play the audio here. Yep, okay, hold on. Also, content warning, Family Guy ableism, etc., etc. Just listen to the point.
Neo-Nazi with Down syndrome. The Jews are using the blacks as muscle against the white race. We are the perfect race.
I don't like his racism, but I admire his courage.
Classic Family Guy joke. We all get it. But you understand the point made here, right? The point I'm trying to get at here is that this is a well-known enough like Nazi talking point that even Family Guy is riffing off of it. You get me? We understand? Okay. All right. I just want to point that out because I so often get accused of conspiracism. Like, nobody believes that. Well, no, actually, yes, they do. And that's kind of what this tweet is. The only real difference is that Candace Owens doesn't specifically say Jews. And Candace Owens also doesn't say black people are the dumbest ethnic group with the lowest emotional IQ. Candace Owens says other people consider black Americans the dumbest ethnic group with the lowest emotional IQ. Which essentially is just a way of, like, in the language you're using, transposing the responsibility of suggesting the Jewish question to, like, other people. Does that make sense? What's an emotional IQ? I think, the answer to that varies depending on who I ask as well. Anyway, look, okay. I don't know how much this is resonating with people I'm talking about, but, like, this is deeply, deeply worrying, okay? Like, I need you to understand that, all right? One of the problems we've had with the past, like, 5-6 years since the Trump administration really took off, is the fact that there have been a lot of far-right talking points that have been normalized in common discourse. that's not to say that they didn't exist prior. There have always been like far right political participants in our system. That's not like a new thing. But nowadays, it feels like people are way more comfortable making these talking points openly and outwardly in ways that, like, there's not even much effort being put into the dog whistle. And this is being accepted. This is being commonly accepted. Anti-Semitism, for example, is something that purportedly people on the right, people on the American right, American Republicans, are very, very against. The way that the Jewish people are a minority that Republicans are not as keen on being openly discriminatory against. The Trump administration, when it comes to black people, oh, BLM, they're all thugs. When it comes to Latin people, oh, what a Mexican rapists from the border, like that sort of thing. But with Jewish people, it's a very different kind of relationship where Jewish people are aesthetically elevated, mostly because of their association with Israel, America's wealthiest military base. And if you're not a part of that like Zionist Jewish group, you're like practically less than human to them. Ben Shapiro calls these people like bad Jews. There's been a long-standing tradition for conservative Jewish people and conservative Christian people as well to, Genos, Jewish in name only, to like dehumanize or belittle them. Like, you're not even a real Jewish person because you're not backing our, genocidal colonial settler project in the Middle East, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to be clear, like, in so many ways, language that was not just normalized, but part and parcel to the Nazi regime is becoming normalized in the right here and now today. I've talked about this before. One of the things that Jordan Peterson likes to talk about is cultural Marxism. But cultural Marxism, and again, this isn't just me, you can look it up on Wikipedia if you want, cultural Marxism is basically just a modernized interpretation of cultural Bolshevism, which was a Nazi conspiracy theory. Simple as that. It was just a Nazi conspiracy theory. It was used by the Nazi Party. And the argument under cultural Bolshevism was that pro-egalitarian SJW, they didn't say SJW, but they essentially meant social justice warrior, Jews were trying to destroy Germany by introducing Bolshevik ideology to education, to business, to the government. And what do cultural Marxist theorists say? They say, well, the SJWs are trying to destroy America by introducing Marxist ideology. We see this right now with the critical race theory thing. Right now. It's not just that critical race theory is un-American. It's that critical race theory is Marxist, and Marxists are un-American. And the Marxists in this country are infiltrating our academia and our government in order to dispel Marxist ideology. And it's the same conspiracy theory. They're just not saying Jewish people. And I don't really know or care whether or not they choose Jewish people as their new scapegoat. That's actually the beauty of their new war machine. It can be anybody. It doesn't have to be Jewish people. It can switch now because they haven't specifically designated Jewish people as the orchestrator of this conspiracy theory. They can use any group of people. What about trans people? Haven't you heard about the trans lobby? There are people who legitimately believe the only reason homosexuality is not still considered a mental illness in the DSM is because of, like, the gay lobby threatening, like, psychology groups in the US. It can be them. It can be BLM. It can be anyone. It could be Jewish people if it needs to. It can be feminists if it needs to. It can be Democrats. It can be anyone. There's always some conspiracy, some modern progressive group that has infiltrated every level of our society. And for a while, I thought it ended there. But now we're getting to the comma, and they're using black people as muscle to destroy America. We've added another piece to the puzzle. Do you understand why this worries me? The idea, this vague conspiracism, this has been around for a while now, and it's been popular for years now, but now another piece has slotted right into the puzzle. Now it's not just the conspiracy. Now it's also, and they're using the blacks to carry out their anti-American agenda. And it's like, okay, all right. How open, how How flagrant do we need to be here? Exactly. I mean, what's the next puzzle piece? I'm really asking, by the way. Oh, sorry, not dispel. I meant disseminate. My apologies. Yeah. What's the next puzzle piece? I'm legitimately wondering here. Like, after you go once you go to, it's cultural Marxism, and they're using like black people to attack America. Where do you go past that? Are they going to start talking more openly about the Frankfurt School? That feels like it comes in and out of favor, you know? Maybe they're going to start talking more and more about the Frankfurt School. Maybe they're going to start saying, like, this particular group of influencer, you know? They'll never say Jewish people, by the way. What they'll do is they'll point to traditionally Jewish intellectual traditions, Jewish thinkers, Jewish scholars, and these guys. And they don't need to say Jewish people. Folks, their followers will pick up the message. They don't need to. They don't actually need to name ethnic groups here. If you fill in like 98% of a puzzle and hand it to like your audience, they're not, well, they are stupid, but they're not that stupid. They can fill it in themselves, and maybe it'll be Jewish people, maybe it'll be some other group. It doesn't be globalists, yeah, elites, the Marxists, the way they constantly go on and on and on about Soros, and it's something to be concerned about, okay? And I really would not be surprised if, especially running into the next election cycle, we see a resurgence of the narrative that it's not Black Lives Matter that's the real threat. It's the people controlling Black Lives Matter. I bet you there's going to be that rhetorical shift, especially since over time, BLM is going to become more popular. Over time, these socially progressive movements, they tend to be more popular, you know, especially because it's only a matter of time before there's another highly publicized murder of an innocent black person, you know? And when that happens, it's going to grow more popular, and they're going to have to change their tone. It's not BLM that's the issue. It's actually whoever's controlling BLM. You understand, yes? Have you seen Rufo's video on CRT? It talks about the Frankfurt School a lot. Yes, there are some people, particularly those who talk about critical race theory, pretend to talk about, I guess, who talk about the Frankfurt School very, very frequently. And just so you know, by the way, if you want to like look up discourse on the Frankfurt School, there are two big groups that do it, okay? Obscure postmodernist philosophers and neo-Nazis. Those are the two groups that care about the Frankfurt School. Just so you know, all right? If you're learning about the Frankfurt School, it's either because you're a PhD philosophy student, or because you're or because you're on Stormfront and you're learning some really interesting stuff about the fate of the white man in this country, you know? Anyway, I don't want to ramble on about it too much, but the Frankfurt School is also super based for Marxist intersectionality. Yeah, it's based. Also, it's one of the hearts of postmodernist critique in America, and that's good. Loud ass cars outside. Jesus. Anyway, okay, there we learned. Whites are the only irrational race that fear eradication when they're the ones dominating and eradicating our races. Nah, that's not true. You know how I know that? Go take a look at India right now. See what's happening with Modi and Hindu nationalists. See what's happening in China, you know, right there in that group. Anytime like you have an ethnically supremacist like group grow to any degree of power, you're going to have the same narrative emerge. That's why you should never, ever, ever allow power to be segmented along ethnic or national or racial lines. Absolutely never. Unfortunately, human beings are naturally tribalistic, but they're tribalistic along any line that's convenient to them. You know what I mean? Like, people say, like, racism is natural. Well, that's not true. Tribalism is natural, but people will be tribalistic about sports teams if that's the only thing they have to divide them. If you tell people to care about skin color, they will. But if you tell people to care about other things, then they'll care about that. And I would rather have people be partisan and tribal over either meaningless stuff or stuff that is directly meaningful and impactful and worthwhile, you know? Yeah, religion too, just anything. Hold on. New emotes coming soon, by the way. Vosh texts like a grandmother. Shut up. We need to run some new ones. So I think some obvious ones that we need. I know it's been a while. I think some obvious ones that we need Cat Jam. That's necessary. We need Cat Jam. But yeah, okay, we can get Pogo. We can get Pogo and Cat Jam. We need Think, I think. I want it like to be me, you know? Like a drawing of me, like the Think, you know? As fun as it is for you guys to do it yourself with the little hand emojis, let me do that. I want it to be art, like drawn, like my face. You know what I mean? I also think like we should probably get one of that stupid Vouch face. You know what I'm talking about, right? The one where I look dumb. Both my eyes are looking either way. You know, like you know what I'm talking about, right? The not a cool one, okay? But yeah, the MS Paint drawing, yeah. Just need my camera. Yeah, the Derp Vosh one. That one would be good. And I think I really, really, really want refresh. So like, here's what I'm thinking. Hold on. Let me see if I get. Wait, hold on. Just a second. Here's my idea. Okay, hold on. Emote. Emote PNG. Please Google. What can somebody explain to me why Google doesn't have a setting that allows you to choose like whether or not you're actually searching for a PNG? Like, but not have it lie to you the way that it always does. Okay, here we go. This is a tiny image, but okay, hold on. Image distortion? No, what's the name of the image static effect? Image editor? There's like a really cool there's what no, not deep frying. It's I've used it before. It's actually a really, really good just like website you can just drop a thing into, and there's like 40 sliders that you can turn up and down. It has a bunch of like it's like a website, and then on the side it has I've used it before. Why isn't it showing up? What did I look at before? Is it Data Mosh? No, it's not an app. Photomosh. Yeah, it's called Photomosh. Hold on. Okay, here's what I was thinking, okay? Join me. Join me, everyone. So I thought what would be cool is like we have what would be cool would be like we have refresh, like REEFRESH, and it would be like it'd be like a GIF. You know what I mean? Hold on, wait. We need the is it bad TV? No, maybe not bad TV or so. Hold on. You can fuck around with this, but like I feel like no. Where's the is it Linocut? No, that's definitely not it. Bad TV duotone posterize. There's so many effects here. Wouldn't people just use this as an angrier re? Maybe, but it should be used to indicate wait, hold on. We can differentiate it more. There's okay, that's just reshake. Wobble? No. Where's the RGB ship Instacart tilt shift barrel blur? Do you understand what I'm getting at though? And if it was like fast enough, I feel like it would need to be a different color tone though. Not that, Jesus. It'd have to be like ooh, that looks good. It'd have to be like a if we tilt shift scan lines. That's good. Oh, that's good. If we get that hue and saturation. Oh god. I feel like if we did this well, we could have like a really nice refresh, you know? I feel like that'd be possible. Does anyone else think that'd be possible? No, Hannah. But China is socialist? 996 working hour system? A work schedule practiced by companies in China. It derives its name from the requirement that employees work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. 6 days a week, i.e. 72 hours per week. Jesus Christ. Fuck China, dude. All my homies hate China. Jimmy Dore's wife has VDS. Yeah, I saw her shit talking me on Twitter. Super funny. Like making people mad. All right, anyway. I think we get the idea, right? Yeah, his wife. Believe it or not. Itchy back. Nah. Did you see an Arizona prison is using gas from Auschwitz to kill people? Yeah, I really don't. Okay, wait. I could be wrong on this, and I really just want you to like correct my ignorance. I feel like we have such ineffective methods of executing people. Like, the lethal injections often don't work. Gassing people is largely ineffective. Like I don't understand. It seems like there's a lot of really weird. And North Carolina just re-legalized firing squads. See, that's the thing. Yeah, at least like with a shot, like I mean, that's how much is a bullet? Like that's relatively like cheap and it works. But every once in a while, I read a story and it's like state spent $300,000 on lethal injection shot. Guy suffered for 12 hours before dying, and it's like, what? How's that even working? What? I don't understand. Would you want to be killed by firing squad? I'd prefer being shot to being injected. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't want the state to be able to execute anyone, but yeah, yeah. Well, I guess you can't have an open casket funeral then, but it's painless if you're shot in the head. I mean, properly. How about we don't execute folk? Yeah, obviously we shouldn't execute people. But I'm just saying, there seems to be a lot of really weird bureaucratic bullshit behind, like, it's not painless, Vosh? How would you know? Shut up, Malindays. Don't they usually aim for center mass instead of the head? Yeah, I don't really understand that. You don't die instantly if you're shot center mass unless they get your heart, and even then it's not really instant. There has to be a reliable way of doing this, right? We should just use explosions. Well, that'd be instant. I think the goal of an execution is to be able to have an open casket funeral afterwards, right? Right? Like ideally you want to be able to have, right? I think so. I assume so. So destructive methods, like visually destructive methods. What is an open casket? At your funeral, your face is visible. When you if you're guillotined or shot, then you don't get that because there's a hole in your face. Why do you want an open casket? I don't know. Some people might want open casket is an American thing. Wait, what? Is this not a worldwide thing? Open casket funerals international? How would I find out whether or not this is something? Does the UK do open casket funerals? In the UK, open casket funerals are very rare. Whereas in the United States, oh, I guess it's just the United States that does that. Yeah, okay. We're pretty much the only ones who do that. All right. I didn't know that. Well, in the United States, it's fairly common, if possible, for coroners to beautify the dead so that they can be shown with the casket open. You can look at their face. What's that? Why? It's not more. Shut up. What? What? This is what you're showing me. Why is he so floppy?
Floppy.
Okay.
I wanted to show you because it's a little Cthulhu.
Hyena is breaking the stun lock to show a
Move him around.
yeah, hold on. To show a wiggly Cthulhu with magnets
Come back.
or tension. Camera, I need you to work with me here. Stop looking at my face, camera. Quit algorithmically determining that I'm the thing worth looking at. Can you? No, you're not helping. You're making it harder. But come on. There you go. Ooh. Yeah, very spooky. All right, go.
Stop talking about that.
Skedaddle. What flavor is it, Vosh? I don't know. Probably like plastic flavor, I'm guessing. Anyway, I didn't realize that open casket funerals were rare outside of America. Or I'm sure there are other countries that do this as well, but... Hmm. You want a link to the Arizona story? No, I'm familiar with it. Flash, you good? Wait, am I not good? Are you going to talk about Netanyahu? No, just to fuck with you. Hold on, let's read donos really quickly. Pretty soon we'll be talking to a nice lady. Jason here. And Nathan Nelson, thank you for the $5 both. Really appreciate that. Jason here, thank you for the gifted 2-1 sub. Hungamaster, thank you for the $5. Really appreciate that. Not going to lie, there are unironically a lot of aspects of CRT that seem cringe/toxic as fuck. Eris talked about it on her stream today. I'd recommend talking with her about it. What a lot of people don't realize, and by a lot of people, unfortunately, I also mean leftists, is that social theories that are meant to be discussed in academic circles are not necessarily social theories that should be, like, disseminated in the form of messaging to the public, okay? Like, that is just not how things work, okay? Like, for example, if you're a behavioral therapist, a social psychologist, or just a psychologist, you're familiar with a bunch of theories of human behavior that explain a lot of stuff. However, imagine if, like, not only did you know these theories, but you were writing books about how everyone should implement them, and then, like, corporations were hiring you to give talks to the employees about, like, optimized strategies for interpersonal interaction, which come off as, like, really inhuman and, like, cold and calculating when framed through, like, a PowerPoint presentation rather than the broader context that they would be introduced in academia. It would be highly inappropriate. The problem is that critical race theory is a collegiate theory. It is not like it is not like a thing that is meant to be, like, generally, like, understood by the public. Most collegiate theories are just that, a sort of working lens of analysis that are used to arrive at conclusions that maybe sometimes are, like, suitable for public discussion, but it's like, seriously. Can you imagine if, like, I'm trying to think of a really, really good example for this. Okay. Judith Butler, performativity theory of gender, right? Performativity theory of gender. It's a really, really interesting theory. It works, right? Like, think about it, you know? What is gender? Well, gender is a performance and life is the stage. Every day we make decisions to present ourselves in ways that are meant to be reflections of our identity. It's maybe not explanatory of everything, but it's definitely an interesting way of thinking about things, right? Like, there's worth to it. Judith Butler's gender performativity theory was extremely influential when it was introduced, and it's led to a lot of the new and more progressive stuff that we have today. It's relevant. So imagine if, like, somebody had, like, a corporate PowerPoint presentation, like they were a consultant hired by a firm, and they were like, all right, here are all of the ways in which you perform your gender, okay? All right, you see that? You over there with the dress, you're doing a performance right now. Do you understand? Now, okay. Now, the way to address some of the problems we've been having in the workplaces like this and then this, like, it wouldn't be appropriate for public consumption. It's not meant to, it's not meant to derive explicit prescriptive behavior from in ways that should affect, like, the general population. Anyway, it's just, people need to be careful about academic theories. Critical race theory is like that as well. Same with a lot of economic theories. Same with a lot of stuff. It's not, you can't just go out there and talk to normies about it. Not because they're too stupid to get it. I have a lot of faith in the intelligence of ordinary people. It's because without the context of academic discourse, a lot of the prescriptive judgment can come off like really harsh or like really, really stupid. That doesn't mean the idea is stupid. It just means that's how discourse works. Ugh, God. Rough out there. I mean, a lot of it is harsh. Yeah, a lot of it is harsh, but that doesn't mean like everyone should. Hunger Master, thank you for the $2 donations. Yes, Shu and other left-leaning populists do ramble about elites, but at least with Shu on head, I'm quite confident that it's not a dog whistle. It's just an unwillingness to adapt her language in ways that do not overlap with dog whistles from other people. Having spoken to Shu, I'd like to consider us friends. Don't think that Shu hates Jewish people. Just not a feeling that I get from her. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Don't think that, though. Habis, thank you for the $10. Oh, that's mystical. No. I'll do the art, or Hyena will do the art. I don't want to have other people do it. Habis, thank you for the $2 donations. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. And congratulations on joining the Red Party in Norway. And I hope the election goes well. Matthew, thank you for the two $5 donations. Yes, Gray Zone is cringe. What do you do in your free time when you're not streaming? Play games. Eat. Do a lot of fun stuff. Shy Dude, thanks for the very kind Tier 1 sub. John Garrison, thank you for the very kind $10. Can you please raise money for unionization efforts? That is one of many things that I think would be worth raising money for, but we still are on a cooldown period before our next fundraiser. Sake Tanuki, thank you for the two $10 donations. I really appreciate that. I swear 99% of conservatives think postmodernism is a cereal. Yeah, probably. An evil cereal. Full of, like, nails, that you bite into and they kill you instantly. Submersed Sword, thank you for the $10. Ben Shapiro made a video titled "The Establishment Media is Pushing Us Towards a Civil War." Well, that's what conservatives love to do. Conservatives will sharpen their swords and load their guns and then go in front of a microphone and scream that, like, liberals are making them do this. They love doing that because they're despicable, lying little fucks. They do it all the time. Conservatives will do everything in their power to escalate tensions, to bring us closer and closer to violence, to actively endorse the violence when it happens. But then they'll go on there and say, this is because Joe Biden didn't ask us permission before passing an executive order feeding the homeless, Not to be pestering, but did you ever get to post the receipts from the PCRF? I actually asked Steve Sosaby to post the receipts because, he'd have to be the one to confirm it on his end. And he hasn't done it. So I don't know if he just... I'm assuming that Steve got some criticism for working with me and he doesn't want to, like, revel in the relationship, like, publicly in the way that he could. But, I mean, I'll put it this way, okay? I talked to the person I gave the money to on stream. If I didn't give him the money, he probably would have said something by now. That would be a pretty tough thing for me to sweep under the rug. It's not like we donated to the Red Cross with some giant organization where I didn't directly come into contact with anyone. I invited the man on stream. Be pretty ballsy of me, by the way, to invite him on stream, say we're going to donate you the money, then not do it, and just not expect consequences to come by. Just... Yeah. Maybe I will post it. At this point, it would feel like virtue signaling. How much did you bribe him? Yeah, I cut him in $50K so I could take the remaining $250,000. That's how the mafia works. Yes, that would be illegal, of course, which is why we didn't do it. Also, be unethical. Jesse Zimmerman and Charles Bergenstein, thank you for the $5 and $10 respectively. I really appreciate that. Cultural Bolshevism became cultural Marxism post WW2, renamed by the John Birch Society in the 1950s. Nazis applied it to the nation, but cultural Marxism refers to all of Western civilization. Yes, that's true. Another difference between, like, Nazis then and Nazis today, Nazis today don't actually tend to be nationalists, I've noticed. Like, not compared to the old Nazis. The old Nazis were Germans. But nowadays, the rhetoric seems to be more about a broader, like, pan-European, like, the Europa type stuff. It seems to be a lot more racially oriented around white people than ethnically oriented around Aryans or nationally oriented around Germans. You could argue that's still a form of nationalism. I'm just saying the rhetoric has changed a little bit, Is that European Nazis or us Nazis? Oh, U.S. Nazis? I should say U.S. Nazis. That's mostly my experience. I think that European Nazis tend to be a lot more nationalistic. I think a lot of U.S. Nazis kind of think that their country's already been lost because a lot of them talk about like returning to Europe to make it like the glorious homeland for white people. I think a lot of them are under the impression that America is too non-white now for it to be saved. Like the rhetoric is like we abandon America to like the non-whites and like we take Europe or whatever. But yeah. Little Tiger, thank you for the €2. Sorry about the heat wave in Germany. Break Your Chains with a very kind tier 2 sub. Hey Vosh, been watching for a long time on Twitch, but I thought I'd finally hop over here and actually support you. It's really sweet, and thank you. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the kindness, you know? We're all here on the site. Ugh. I'm really excited to get new shorts in the future. Now that my shorts are like slipping, you know, now that we're a fitness king. We're the necessary girth around the waist is no longer keeping the shorts afloat. I haven't bought new shorts in ages. Auntie and Trans Girl Therapist, thank you for the very kind $10 both. Auntie says, we all know who's ruling Europe, especially the UK. Insert river dancing noises. Quiet there, you sustenance. And Trans Girl Therapist says, I'd like to organize a panel on woke scolds and figure out lefty solidarity against them. Would you be interested? Probably not right now. I really want to avoid drama for at least a month. I'd really appreciate it if we could just keep this channel calm while I undergo the algorithmic changes that I'm attempting to make. I'd really like it if we could just I'm gonna keep it a little bit calm for right now, okay? Gucker and Jason here, thank you for the $5 both. Jason here has a question for chat. How many of y'all used to be liberals and how many used to be right-leaning before you became leftists? That's going to be a tough question for chat to answer en masse. Gunkus Crazy, thank you for the very kind tier 1 sub. Thank you very much. I'm very glad to hear that you enjoy the content. Hunga Master, thank you. Oh, wait, I already did that one. Sasha Poor, thank you for the very kind €5. Really appreciate that as well. Stone Yeti, thanks for the $3. My family hates that I listen to you and I respond by raising the volume. Good. Get kicked out because of me. Empower me. Indirectly like that. Yeah, Hunga Master, another big issue with like critical race theory discourse is that even if there are problems with critical race theory, which, I mean, any theory can have holes poked in it. That's fine. I'm down for that discussion. Conservatives don't know what critical race theory is, so like they interpret any anti-racism as critical race theory. They're unironically saying that like children being taught that slavery was like foundational to the early United States is critical race theory. No, it's not. That's not a critical race theory perspective. That's just a fact. It's just a historical fact. Historians agree with that fact, you know? Yeah. Colonel Panic, thank you for the $5 thoughts on the DSA. I think they do some good work. Sake Tanuki with a very kind $10. Why can't the paleocons just be accurate to the era they named themselves after and advocate for the returning to monkey and for ape-no states? Because they're dastardly hypocrites, but they'll hold us to the fire for not refusing to participate in all consumer consumption. Isaac with the gifted tier 1 sub, thank you very much. Hug to you as well. The only messages remaining are from filthy, degenerate, subhuman linkers. Just not honestly, not even worthy of my time. But I will check those out soon. Let me check in. 3, 2, when you are. I know how discussions like this tend to go, and I have a feeling that you dipshits are going to leave because, oh my god, he's not talking about Ben Shapiro. But I so emphatically beg you to please listen because this stuff is important, okay?
Hello?
Hey,
Hey,
how you doing?
good.
I'm happy to hear that. I am also doing good.
Good.
Can you hear me all right?
I can. I'm just hearing repeats, so I'm not sure if that's on my end or your end.
Let me check. Things seem to be fine on my end. You're hearing repeats. How would that? Oh, or do you have my stream up?
That's probably it.
Probably doesn't help.
No. Okay, I think we're better now.
All right. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty okay. I appreciate you coming on. The young people in my audience are probably only vanishingly familiar with the good that you've done, and I think it would be nice to educate them slightly.
Oh, well, I'm flattered that you think I did good. Yeah, it's crazy to think that I was 10 years younger than I am now. I'm almost 26, so I did this. It's full 10 years ago now.
Oh my God, you're
Um,
younger than me. All right.
I am.
Introduce yourself, please, to everyone.
So my name's Jessica Alquist, and the reason that I'm on the stream is because when I was in high school, I sued my city, or I guess you could say school, because they had a religious prayer displayed on the wall. They called it a banner, but it was actually painted straight on the wall. And it was titled School Prayer, and it started Our Heavenly Father, ended with Amen, and it was a prayer. So it started off where I just asked them, hey, I think there might be a problem with this, and it ended up becoming a lawsuit. The ACLU reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be represented in the event that the school committee that they had created to talk about the issue, if they decided that they were going to refuse to take it down. I was asked if I would want to be in a lawsuit, and I said okay, obviously with the permission and consent of my parents and all that. But it ended up getting to that level where the city decided, no, we're going to leave it up, and that was against their own attorney's better judgment. But it's a very, very religious area. I'm from Rhode Island, which people don't think of being a conservative place, but it's very Catholic.
So, the reason I was so astonished when you reached out to me was because, I mean, we're basically the same age, so we would have graduated at around the same time. But back
Yeah.
at the time that this was happening with you, back when you were doing this, I was big in with the louder left-leaning political communities online, which at the time were mostly like new atheists. They were mostly like, 'cause you remember back in those days, it was like the cool, logical atheists versus the cringe Christians. Like that was like the big discourse at the time.
Very well, yes.
Yeah, and your case was one of the central topics of discussion for a long, long time. It was crazy. I was like a blast from the past when you messaged me, and I was reminded of all of that. But in addition to it just being a part of my memory of early college and late high school, it's also like incredibly important. Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions about how everything went down?
No, please do. It's hard for me to talk about like almost a 3-year course, event in my life, and to know where to start is actually really difficult. So hit me with any questions you got.
Yeah, so you said that the community that you were in was a very like conservative religious community. Can you like tell us how that manifested exactly?
Yeah, so the school I went to, I would say the majority of the people who went to that school identified as Catholic. And while I would say most of the people, I mean, we didn't vote at that point, but I would say most people had like left-leaning parents when it came to like voting. So socially, definitely on the left,
Hmm.
but in a strange way, religion has just always been sort of part of the public sphere. So, like growing up, I would have teachers say things like, I want you guys to be behaving the way that you would if the Pope were to show up. And little things like that, here and there, or like
Oh
in
God.
choir.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a public school and not just like a small school, in the middle of nowhere. Cranston, where I'm from, is one of the larger cities in Rhode Island. I mean, it's not Providence, but it's not like the middle of nowhere, certainly. So I mean, I always kind of brush those things off because I was young and it didn't really seem that big of a deal. But at the point that the school had something up on the wall that was, clearly an establishment of religion, I would say, um, I noticed it as a freshman. So I was 14 for my whole freshman year. And it wasn't until the very end that my best friend had seen it and had been like, hey, did you know this was there? Let's go look at it. And so we did, and we just looked at each other and thought, this cannot possibly be legal. And I mean, it wasn't, obviously, but at the time I didn't feel totally confident in that. So I did some research on it. And then after it became sort of a public issue, that's when I started getting just straight up harassed at school. So even though these people, I wouldn't call them conservative. That makes it sound much more Southern than it is.
Right.
I'm no shame to the South, nothing like that. But I'm trying to, every time people hear about this story out of context, they just assume that it happened, in the Bible Belt or
But
something.
to them, it probably felt like out of nowhere. Like they were all comfortable in the way things were, and then you were like the godless do-gooder trying to bring the federal government down on what was otherwise a wholesome. I imagine that was kind of like the narrative, right? Like you were rocking the boat.
Yeah. I mean, people would straight up say to me, like total strangers would say to me, well, it's been there for a long time and nobody's complained about it. So why do you care about it? And I, obviously would explain why.
Well, tell me,
Probably.
why did you care about it? Was it like a principled commitment to our constitutional rights, or was there something about it like on a personal level that made you feel uncomfortable?
Um, Probably a mix. I think that once I realized the extent to which the city was comfortable or the school was comfortable saying, you can just look the other way, I think that added to my anger about it, or to my feeling of not belonging because of it. I mean, it to say school prayer, and also growing up, one of my closest friends was Muslim. And, you know, that the way the phraseology of this prayer, you can't pretend it's just, every denomination or every religion. It's
Uh-huh.
not at all. Our Heavenly Father, that's really only Christians that would call God that. So, and people would point out too, it's a positive message. How can you have a problem with that? Again, it's not a positive message that I have a problem with. It's the fact that the school was, I mean, the First Amendment says that the government cannot establish religion. And this was a public school. So, I mean, how much more could a public school show its preference towards one religion than they were?
Yeah, that would have made me deeply uncomfortable. When I grew up, where I grew up, it was a very Jewish community. And there were private Jewish schools all over the place. But one thing that I could always count on, because they held this in high regard, was that no matter what the relationships were between the students who attended the school I went to or their professors and anyone's religious orientation, nobody was ever made to feel comfortable or uncomfortable because of their religion where I went to school. There were Muslims who went there and Jewish people, Christians and Catholics and everyone. And I think that environment, that expectation that you can go there, no matter your faith, and just set it down for a second and not be bothered is really important. And I imagine that it's quite disruptive to that, to see what is essentially a endorsement of a particular faith emblazoned across the wall, in the building. It would really disrupt that feeling. Even if everything else was fine, I still think that people would be legitimately uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. And that's exactly why, my friend had seen it before I did. It was actually in our school's auditorium. And so she had seen it. And then at the end of the day, that day, towards the end of our freshman year, I got a text and she said, did you know this was there? And, she was very shocked by it. She was the only other person I knew at that point who actually did identify as an atheist, which I do. I probably should have mentioned that at this point, but that was part of what put the spotlight directly on me was that I publicly, so I went to this meeting and I had used the word atheist. And so I think that was sort of what really diverted all the attention to that issue, like a religious thing. Like if I was successful in taking the prayer down, I think a lot of people in the community and the school they were acting as if the only way to interpret that was that atheism was dominant, that
Yeah,
it was
and it's
winning.
like an attack then too. It's not about like a dispassionate enforcement of constitutional rules. Now it's like the surly atheist. You're like the Grinch, and you're trying to steal Christmas from everyone now, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, the very first night that I ever said I was an atheist, I was 15, I think, and like I still had braces on. I had come to this meeting like with a winter coat on, and I like didn't take it off the whole time. Like I did like TV interviews wearing a winter coat because I was just so nervous, and it was like a security blanket. Like people said like, oh, you're just looking for attention, this and that, but I really can't stress to you how shy I was at that point, at that age. And yeah, that very night I had presented myself. I said, as an atheist student at this school, I feel like this prayer is saying that I don't belong here, really. I mean, it's making me feel out of place. It's making me feel like this school values the religious students over the non-religious students. And a woman who had been in the audience at that meeting gasped out loud, like it was audible. And she called me, I think, a witch that night. And she continued to go to the rest of the meetings. Lots of people did. The meetings became completely crazy. There was hundreds of people in attendance by the last one. And the types of things that people would call me
And
were shocking.
this was before the ACLU got involved, right? This was back when it was just discourse between you and the school.
Yes,
Okay.
because in the beginning, I didn't go straight to the ACLU. I just I just voiced my opinion basically. And it was through news coverage that the ACLU caught wind of,
Right.
this whole court case maybe being a thing in the future. And then they thought, hey, they saw me on the news and thought that I would be someone who would be a willing plaintiff, because the ACLU wouldn't be able to do anything without a plaintiff. They would have
Right.
no standing.
They would have to birth a child, enroll that child in that school 15 years later, and then
Exactly.
right, yeah, be a little more involvement on their end. So it is funny because I've known plenty of religious people, and there are plenty of fine, wonderful religious people. I'm not besmirching that, but there are some religious people who I swear, the right like triggers, the right indicators will send them back to the 16th century. Like sometimes they whip right back over there, like calling you a witch for saying you were an atheist. That's incredible. I mean, not in a good way, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. No, I do. I do. I mean, they called me a Satanist. A lot of people thought that the word atheist was synonymous with Satanist, thinking that I quite literally worshipped the devil and things like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I was a kid. Like I was a child. And so it's been 10 years since then. And like the level of horror that I now have for some of the stuff that was said to and about me, now that I'm an actual adult, I just kind of can't even believe it. Like it is actually something that the more reflecting on it I do, the worse I realize it was.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, like to say that about a kid too. And the funny thing is, I mean, it completely flips the script on like the perceived antagonism. If the people in that community, or not all of them, but if the loudest minority of that community had been reasonable, this would have just been like a simple constitutional discourse issue. But they go there, they turned it into the media firestorm that brought the ACLU down on them.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, not to say they asked for it, but they had every opportunity to just take it down. They didn't need to be sued necessarily. They're the ones that made it go that far by deciding that, no, we're just going to continue to violate the First Amendment and the rights of all the students in this school and their parents and the taxpayers and everybody. I mean, it's a First Amendment issue. And so, and that was obvious. That was obvious, I think, even to them. I
Mhm.
think that they thought, no, we're just going to take a principled stance, to defend religion here. The people who were on the school committee would not make it, it was no secret that they were very much bringing their religion with them into the school, and they said things to that effect. One of them at one point, and it was probably just theatrics that he had even worn rosary beads for that day. I have a hard time believing he wore them every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he pulled them out of his shirt very like dramatically and said, as a practicing devoted Catholic, he can't leave his religion at the door. So, he appreciates the Constitution and everything, but it's just not within his, religious
He's built
instructions.
different. Yeah, he's built different.
Exactly.
That is psychotic. And wow, you have to have a poor understanding of the Constitution to think that is how that works.
This man was a lawyer too. I mean, it's not like he hadn't been taught about how this stuff worked.
That's cool. With all of this hate that you were getting, why did you keep putting up with it? I mean, you were a high school girl. You must have been going through so much stuff elsewise, personal, college stuff coming. Like there must have been so much in your life already, and you made the decision to continue to allow this process to be a part of your life. What like propelled you to do that?
Well, again, I feel funny like admitting to this, but I think it was partially the hatred itself that drove me to be like, you can't do this. It made them seem like much less sympathetic people,
Right.
honestly. Like I felt a little bad. Like, hey, this is my hometown. This is where I grew up. This is my school, my community, my peers. How could I be suing them, And for the record, I did not get a penny from any of this. Okay.
Mhm.
My lawyers did, but I did not. So a lot of people think I was in it for the money or that I got some kind of settlement. I got nothing, and that was by choice. I specifically said I would like nothing because there are so many allegations that I'm doing this for money.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, yeah, I got a $25 check. That's the minimum you can get, and I've
Yeah.
never cashed it. I still have it, so it's like a trophy for me. So I mean, I do feel a little funny admitting that. Yeah, their aggression and the way that they were talking about all atheists as if they knew them all, it kind of pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie,
So
and that was
their reactive behavior not only spurred the ACLU, it also spurred you. Like it was just like a spike train all the way to Gravy Town. I mean, I completely get that too. Like if I'm like, you know, if I'm over at like a friend's house or something, and they ask me like oh yeah man, can you like can you not like slam the doors when you enter? Like I'd be like, oh okay. But if like you walk in there and lightly close the door and they scream at you for it, I mean, it's an issue now, right? Anything. If people are rude to you, you give them every imaginable excuse to continue like pushing back against them. It's so cool that you continue to go through with that, by the way.
I mean, it just got worse. Like in response to me sticking up for myself,
Hmm.
I mean, my life was threatened like a lot. Like it got really, really bad. Not just like bullying, not just people my age, but like anonymous handwritten letters with like photos of me cut out from the newspaper, like terrifying stuff. Police were like going around our house, around my family's house. I have three younger siblings who were like all under the age of 13 at that point. So
Hmm.
it was a very scary time, and I sometimes feel guilty for putting my family through that, especially since they have the same last name, and for a while, that was, like, you know, not awesome in the community to be sharing that that was your name. So I had a lot of mixed feelings about it, but it got so bad that there were police with me at school taking me from one class to the next because people in my school had made seemingly real threats against me online. And that was, I mean, for the record, ACAB all the way. I'm not suggesting anything about cops here. I just that I was like a liability to the school.
All credit to the famed religious tolerance of your community. With the police, that must have been really embarrassing, right? I mean, like, having a cop escort you from class to class. I know
Yeah.
if I was a kid, that would have been mortifying to me,
Oh, I didn't learn anything. I couldn't think about anything else except for, I have people who wish they could be saying things to me right now, and the only reason they can't is because there's literally an armed police officer right here. So I mean, yes, it was definitely embarrassing, but I mean, I would be lying if I said that I didn't feel a little safer that way. Like, there were people who were very specific about their threats too. Like, oh, she's in my bio class. I'm going to get her. She sits in front of me. Like, what? So it was, legitimately kind of scary. But I think the
Yeah,
scariest
no,
part.
you don't trust me. You don't need to defend the premise that you were fearful for your life. I think everyone listening is completely on board with the sincerity of that claim. And I can imagine having a cop around probably would make you feel, a lot better. Whatever political opinions we may have on cops generally, just having a big guy around, an effective deterrent to a lot of things, really, or girl, doesn't have to be gender, but an individual.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And even if they weren't like armed or I mean, they're authority figures. It was sort of the same as assigning like a professor or I guess a teacher um, to sort of take me from class to class. Like, it probably would have been fine, but I think it was just the level of specificity, with the violent
Right,
threats
yeah.
that they just felt like, again, if something does happen to her, we're liable. But the school, very inconsistent with their, like, they knew they were liable, but they would do things like a newspaper would call up the school and ask if I was in school that day, and they would just tell them, which in hindsight, that's
What?
like ridiculous
Yeah,
to
just a
know.
little bit.
Yeah, 15-year-old, and people are calling and just saying, "Hey, I'm with the paper. I need to know this kid's whereabouts." Like, and they just told them,
Yeah, would you say that she sits next to the windows in room 206 in the second floor? Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a tree in the way? Okay, what's her fourth period look like? Yeah. Yeah, that's a little bit fucking insane. I'd have to say. Uh okay. So, you initially brought this to the attention of the school, which sparked an escalating series of threats against you and community tension. So, at what point did the ACLU speak to you? How did they approach you? How did that happen?
I got an email. The executive director of the Rhode Island chapter of the ACLU, he somehow got my email, and he just explained, we've seen you talking about this on the local news, and we are concerned that it's going to lead to a lawsuit. Well, hopefully it would, I guess, from their perspective, but they were thinking that I was the only person who they were aware of that would be willing to turn this into a lawsuit. And so they said, if in fact the subcommittee or the school committee that was made to discuss this whole issue, if they decide at the end of these meetings that they're going to leave the prayer up, would you be interested in becoming a plaintiff? And I had to talk to my dad about it a bit,
Right.
and he said, "We'll do whatever you want to do." And my dad is, that was brave of him because he probably knew what was to come much more than I did. So,
So your family was supportive then of this, of your efforts.
yes, my immediate family. I mean, I have extended family. The majority of them, yes. I'm lucky, very lucky in that way. My dad's been, I guess, an atheist for a long time now. And hey, Dad, if you're watching, listening. He's a big fan of yours.
Oh, oh, well, that's very flattering. Hello. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, of
Howdy.
course.
Um,
Yeah, so that was how it started. He just said they'd been following it and he wasn't sure what was going to happen. I'm talking about the executive director, not my dad at this point, but he
right.
said, we're not
Right.
sure what's going to happen, but it could turn into a lawsuit if you want it. And yeah, at that point, I kind of just didn't really think it would. I was just kind of thinking to myself, well, we'll see if it goes that far. These are all adults. The school committee, they're lawyers and adults and authority figures. They're gonna read the Constitution, the very first amendment, and
Yeah,
recognize that that's not okay.
that's the thing that I would have thought too. I think especially as a younger person, like, wow, do I really have to put in that much effort for something this obvious? I think that would be the thought going through my head, because you'd think you could just like talk to them and it would be settled. You never think, especially when you're a kid, like, wow, this process, this thankless process is going to take years. I mean,
Yeah.
this is going to be like a huge cornerstone of my life. And it's over something not only trivial, also something so obvious. Did you, at the time, were you always thinking like, just one more month and this will be over? Like, just one more week and this will be done.
Probably for the first like several months, I thought that, and then I think at some point it did. I accepted the reality, like, okay, it's gonna be a while, and it was. It was. I didn't get the case wasn't ruled until I was at least halfway through my junior year. Yeah, I'm pretty sure so it was 2012 when the actual decision was reached.
Mhm.
So we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary in January.
Sheesh. So the ACLU approached you and they asked if you'd be willing to be a plaintiff, and you said like all the adults, the professionals, they talked this out, and you thought, oh, as soon as they just talk about it, it'll be settled. Because you'd think that, right? If you're in a town, and this is just a city and a school district, and the ACLU shows up to challenge you, you'd think they would just roll over, right?
I mean, you would definitely expect it, especially, I mean, does your audience know what the ACLU is? The American Civil Liberties Union? Like, that's their whole thing.
I
If you
hope
don't know who
so.
they
I
are,
hope they
look
know
them
that.
up.
I would hope they do, but I will be honest, I don't know if I've ever actually directly said what they are to my audience. Yeah, the American Civil Liberties Union essentially tries to show up and assist on cases which they think are pivotal to civil rights issues. They have a long-standing history of supporting progressive cases, but they do so with a fair degree of political neutrality. In fact, if I remember correctly, there have been instances where they've defended the free speech of neo-Nazis. They're extremely principled in their advocacy for constitutional rights, and it's something that I respect from them, um, as I do with their behavior in this case.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've heard even like they've done plenty of cases where they've actually defended like a student's right to have a Bible with them in a public school, or like to wear, you know, an overtly religious T-shirt or something like that, like to school. So they've done both sides of the spectrum. They don't care whether you're an atheist, a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew. They don't care if you're a Nazi, because they're just looking at, what does Constitution say? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And
That's
that's how they've been able to have such a good reputation too.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I actually appreciate about them. It's they have a commitment to a set of principles, and they don't care who they defend in order to bring about those principles. It's one of the things that spares them from being universally considered a partisan political organization. Because the thing is, if you're fighting to defend civil rights, 99% of the time, you're going to be siding with the left on an issue for fairly obvious reasons. But the fact that they're willing to, when it's applicable, side with people on the right, it goes a long way towards establishing their legitimacy. And that can be helpful when it comes to their reputation, and, though it didn't happen in this case, the extent to which their presence can shut down cases before it even starts. Obviously, with you, you had to take the long route, but I'm sure there are plenty of small towns out there in America that would roll over on their biblical banners if the ACLU showed up, just because they have that formidable representation.
Oh yeah, actually the other side of town did that. So
Oh, well, there you
I should
go.
yeah, so there was a middle school. I mean, I was in high school at the time, but there was actually a middle school across town. I didn't go there, but apparently they had a very similar prayer displayed at their school. And when they heard what was happening with my high school and the ACLU and everything, they just really quietly just took it down and just, they learned, they knew better than to do that. But for some reason my school didn't. They really thought, again, even they had an attorney tell them you're not going to win this case, and they said, yeah, we're going to do it anyway. So I think they knew exactly what they were getting into, and it was all sort of just for show.
Well, I'm sorry that you ended up having to take the long route. I imagine if they just rolled, well, actually, if they had just rolled over, are you happy with how things turned out? I mean, obviously you got the win, but do you wish things could have been settled in a less grandiose manner, or are you happy that there was a big media firestorm around your advocacy for your constitutional rights?
Oof, that's a tough question. I mean, I'm far enough away from it now where most of the conversations about it in my life at this point are positive. Like at
Hmm.
this point, even a lot of the people who I went to high school with who probably did not support what I was doing at the time, they've all gone to college. They've all, grown up and recognized. And also, we've lived through 4 years of, this is why we have a constitution, right? So I think Trump sort of changed everything. It's definitely given me a different perspective on that too.
Hmm.
But yes, yeah.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. I mean, what you want then isn't the same as what you want now. I assume that since well, actually, let's not skip steps. So the ACLU gets involved, and how over the course of that legal battle, how often were your services invoked as a plaintiff? How often would you have to go to this meeting or that, testify here or there? How involved were you in the legal process?
A good number of meetings that we had with the lawyers, and I was, there was a very invasive discovery process where the city's attorneys got access to absolutely everything I did on social media,
Hmm.
like even my direct messages with people, like with my friends and stuff like that. So they were looking to
Cool.
catch me. Yeah, it wasn't the most comfortable thing as a kid that age, and
Cool.
like there's
Cool.
personal stuff. My parents were separated and divorcing, and so I would, if I was having a conversation with a friend about that stuff, no, absolutely everything needed to get turned over to the city or I could get in trouble for that. So I had to, I mean, we literally printed off every single thing I'd ever done on social media and gave it to them.
I have to admit, I do not understand why a judge would accept that. So I'm not a lawyer, but as I understand it, if you're subpoenaing information, or if you're trying to get information turned over to the court, usually the defendant or the lawyer, like either legal team, they have to make that case to a judge. And I'm very, very surprised that the the, the personal messages that you shared with your friend and family, what world does that bear any relevance to the case of the constitutionality of a school banner? What are they trying to determine there? Your intent, like whether or not you were maliciously anti-religious? What could they have possibly
Actually,
gotten from that?
yes. I mean, that actually kind of is why. So the city was, trying to, I don't know if they were actually trying to make the argument, but there was a lot of speculation that I didn't actually care the way that I claimed to,
Hmm.
that I was doing this because I was a pawn of the ACLU or something like that. Like I wasn't, I was some kind of actor. I don't really know what the theory behind this was, but um
It seems like a pretty bad faith attempt at delaying the legal process. I don't think that any judge would ever I don't think any judge would ever overturn a case because your intent has nothing to do with anything regarding the constitutionality. But I mean, it's a way of intimidating you, right? Like hey, drop the case. We can make your life hell in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what the city was attempting to do. And also, ironically enough, the city was trying to make the argument that the prayer should be allowed to stay up because it's a historical thing at this point, that it had been there for such a long time that, it's just a piece of like history or whatever, which, nowhere on it did it say what year it went up, or did it have some kind of
Also, don't think
disclaimer
that's a
being like,
legal
by the
argument.
way,
Yeah.
no, it's totally not. But they tried everything. They were just throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick. And I mean, they tried claiming it was student artwork because back in like the 60s or something, they originally had a student design the prayer. So, I mean, they were really grasping at straws.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were unsuccessful. So, I mean, I do think the judge, I don't think it was him being malicious towards me in any kind of way. Like, I don't think he was thinking, oh, let me accept that in the discovery, this young girl's going to have to turn everything over. I don't think he was thinking like, haha, yeah, that's what I want. But that, he had to give some credence or whatever the word is here to the city's argument that, like, if I was actually telling people secretly, like, oh yeah, I don't actually care about this, like, one of the arguments my legal team was making was that this was offensive to non-religious students. And so they were trying to catch me in a lie, saying to someone like, no, I'm not offended by this. I just, X,
I
whatever
see.
you want to say I was doing it for.
All right. Well, I guess if I had no moral compass, I could understand why they took the direction they did. But you would have to have no moral compass to take it. So it's not good. So you dealt with that for a long time, and eventually you got a favorable ruling. And I'm looking at Wikipedia right now. Do you mind if I quote the judge, District Court Judge Ronald Legault?
Yes, it's a French name, so it's not pronounceable.
Legault, my apologies.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, at the hearing, the judge remarked that you are clearly an articulate and courageous young woman who took a brave stand, particularly in light of the hostile response she received from her community. And of course, you got the ruling, and it was favorable to you. How did things pan out after that? I mean, immediately. Like, what was the fallout from that victory in your life?
So stuff actually got way worse. Like the community really, I mean, they didn't like that I was like, I had the audacity to do this in the first place, but it made it much worse when they were actually told, like, all right, you guys lose. This little girl, this little atheist girl just beat you. They really, really did not like that. So, yeah, I mean, the number of death threats and like, it was just completely insane.
Would you say they were salty?
Yeah, a little salty, probably.
I see here, just under the favorable quote that I read, was that Rhode Island State Representative Peter G. Palumbo spoke on a local radio show the day after that ruling and referred to you as a, quote, evil little thing, end quote.
Yeah. But it kind of backfired on him because we printed it on T-shirts and like sold a ton of them, and that money became a scholarship for me. Like, it did not work out in his favor at all. And then I, later kind of just embraced it as like a nickname, like people would call me that, joke, like in support. But yeah, he was my representative. This guy was like I was a constituent of his. And then the same guy called me a pawn star, like PAWN. And like, I was literally 16. Like, again, like my perspective has shifted. Like at the time I was like, oh, he's calling me a pawn, like a pawn of the ACLU. Oh no. But now I'm like an adult and I'm like, oh, great. So that was a grown man, a politician, calling a young girl a pawn star. Like, yeah. So that was the joke.
Yeah, because when you're a kid, you never think it's real when you're a kid, right? I'm pretty sure, like, it's a lot of people treat it like this. Like, when I was 13 years old, like, little squeaky-voiced Vosh, yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm an adult, basically. But, like, in retrospect, I mean, today the idea of going through everything that you went through as a child sounds exhausting. But you were a child.
Yeah.
And it seems like in spite of all of that, you handled things with an unbelievable amount of grace and introspection that I think most full-grown adults would be desperately envious of.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I was, I hate to say it, but I was kind of mature for my age. I mean, I had been an atheist for a while at the point that I was like 15, 16. Like, I think I decided I didn't believe in God when I was like 10. So, I mean, not that, again, in hindsight, I was just a kid. I was
Right, right.
not, ready for any of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I handled it. I handled it the best I could. And people would constantly say to me, like, oh, I could have never done that. And I mean, I think you don't know what you can do until you do it. Like, I surprised myself. A lot of the stuff that I did, like speaking at events and stuff that came like afterwards, after the case, and like in a good way. Obviously, people who hated me weren't inviting me to speak at conferences and stuff, but I did get invited to a lot of stuff after the fact, like atheist events and things like that. And I I was always just full of anxiety. Like, I can't do this, I can't do this. And then somehow I did it. And so, I mean, I really, that's like the one thing that people say that bothers me is that they couldn't do it. Like, yes, you could. Or at least don't say that about yourself until, you've faced something like that, because you'll surprise yourself when you care about something.
And in retrospect, I assume, and I could be wrong here, but I assume you're happy all this happened. This was formative, and you're proud, and you're still proud. And
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I'm happy to hear that.
I mean, it ruined my childhood. Like, at 15, 16, you have like you don't have much childhood left, right? But like, I didn't finish high school. I didn't go to prom. I didn't get to graduate like with my friends and everything. And there was a lot of stuff that, I mean, I'm going to use the word traumatized because I think it does apply here. I was very traumatized by the whole thing. But, in the course of my whole life, yes, I'm glad this happened.
Yeah, I understand. For what it's worth, you didn't miss out on that much at prom, having gone. It's a highly overrated event. I'm going to assume that's pretty much universally the case for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Coolest
I'm
thing.
sure.
Oh,
My
sorry.
friends all assured me of such.
Oh, yeah,
They
yeah.
all said that was the case.
Everyone's dancing badly. The coolest thing I got at prom is that, they were serving out the little, like, the appetizer and the dessert and everything. It was nice food, too. So while everyone else was off dancing like an idiot, I just went from chair to chair and ate the food that was portioned out for people when they came back to the chairs, like a vacuum cleaner. And that was good. I think I almost ate enough food to recomp the cost of the prom admission.
Oh, yeah, I forget it costs money. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. But you made money. I'm reading this right now. Apparently you made over $62,000 from those t-shirts.
Oh, not just from the t-shirts, but yeah,
Other
a
stuff
lot of
too?
people were like, "How can I support this person?" People from all over the country and world, and that was so meaningful to me.
You still sell them?
Because I I don't. So actually, it was never me who made them in the first place.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it's sort of a universally applicable phrase, I feel, to the left, isn't it? Evil little thing.
I like that phrase too, because there are so many ways they give themselves away in that language. First of all, it's a non-specific criticism. It doesn't actually refer to anything bad that you've done. Second of all, it's patronizing in that creepy older man condescension talking to a younger woman type thing. Third, it's morally essentialist. It's not that you've done anything wrong, it's that you are wrong. It's everything wrong with conservative morality distilled down into a single, well, 3-word phrase. It so perfectly encapsulates how impotent they were in their criticisms of you.
Oh, yeah. Like, it was just, we have to insult her because we don't have a good argument here.
Yeah, not to speak of the Pawn Star bit. I mean, I think, you know, the analysis the analysis does itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's the thing when I hear your story. I mean, obviously, it's a very heartening story. I'm you've gone through quite a bit of turmoil to have arrived at this point. But I mean, it seems that you found a lot of personal purpose in what you did, and I can tell you with great confidence that many, many thousands of other people found purpose in what you did as well, including myself. When I was your age, I mean, I'm your age, so yeah, I guess I was just on the other side of the country following along to what you did. And the thing that I hope moving forward is that stories like this become more common. Because I know that for every story like yours, there are probably 100 stories of people challenging obvious injustice in their community, legal injustice, and not being able to act on it, not being able to challenge it.
That's why I messaged you. I mean, I wanted to tell people, young people, that when something like this, when you see something and you know it's illegal, I mean, you might not know it first, you might have to do some research, but whatever. My point is just that I don't think a lot of these resources that are available to people in these situations are well known enough. Like, I wouldn't have known what to do if the ACLU hadn't reached out to me. So I was lucky enough that that happened. But I mean, what would I have done if I didn't know what those resources were? I would have just asked the school and they would have said, no, we're going to leave it up. And I know this because one of the city's arguments was nobody else has complained about this for all these years that it's been up. But that actually turned out to not be true. When they did discovery, the school was also required to give up any and everything they had that pertained to the case. And we learned through that other people over the years actually had made complaints. Not many. I think it was like 2 complaints about it in like 50 years. So not great. But you know, what happened to them was the administration just said, yeah, we're going to look into it. And then they would just keep it up. And then eventually the person would graduate and that would be it. So it was really only because, I guess, honestly, it's probably because I said I was an atheist. That's what made it a newsworthy story. And that's how the ACLU found out about it.
It's this inequality, this imbalance, it exists at every level, you know? All the people who aren't taught, for example, that if you're arrested by a police officer, you should shut up and not tell them anything and exercise your right to legal counsel. Or all the people who are not aware of all the ways in which you can force your will into the process to attend meetings, to file complaints through the right systems. There are so many people who have to deal with so much bad just because all of the means by which they can make their own lives better are buried behind an avalanche of circuitous bureaucratic horseshit.
Yep.
But you got it.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I don't think I deserve credit necessarily for that, at least not in the beginning, because again, I already told you the ACLU came to me, but they're not even the only ones out there. There's so many organizations that exist purely to do this kind of thing, but you know, getting them connected with the people who need them, that's the hard part.
And I think that one of the big systemic ones here as well, because the ACLU put a lot of labor in, and as I understand it, the school and the city agreed to pay the ACLU back their legal fees at the end of everything. That was part of the victory condition. The ACLU got paid about $150,000 after all the work they got put in. It was pro bono up to that point, right? They never asked you for money?
Correct. I didn't spend any more money or make any money. So
that's awesome. And it does mean, I mean, there's an incentive. If there is a local injustice in your town, something where you think there's a solid case, there are systems, potential systems out there to address it yourself. And failing that, there are systems to attract the attention of civil rights, you know, communities that can lend their services, often because in civil cases, the legal fees can be paid back on, in the case of a victory.
Right. Yes, and that's
As I
exactly what pro
understand it.
bono means. The
Yeah.
the city had lawyers from a conservative Christian group. It's basically like
Of course.
the opposite of the ACLU. Um,
The
they were,
ULCA. Yeah. The very scary org.
and part of the city's argument was sort of actually undermined by the fact that they let lawyers from a conservative Christian organization represent them. So they were claiming like, oh, it's a historical artifact, that's why you shouldn't look at the part that says prayer and read too deeply into that, because it's been there for so long at this point, it should just be considered a piece of history. And
But then they get
they're the ones,
the Christian,
exactly.
the Christian squad rolling up to help them make their case. Yeah. Well, it seems like your legal opponents were not anywhere near as fastidious and forward-thinking as you, or that case might have dragged on for quite a while longer, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, my lawyers were really good. Like they were, and it's a pretty simple case. I mean, they would have been really bad lawyers if they'd lost this one. Honestly,
I think you should give yourself a lot more credit for how integral your spirit was to keeping this case afloat. Seriously, it was really inspiring. I mean, I know that I'm not the only one. I'm sure there are people watching right now who have memories similar to mine.
well, I mean, that kind of makes me feel like it was worth it. Like when I think about having missed out on like some of my childhood and stuff, I'm sort of fine with that if it means that it had an effect on other people or made enough people think, oh, wow, I could do that. Or even just to become aware of it and to be like, oh, hey, you know what? The Constitution's not dead. You can't just do whatever you want in public schools. There are rules that need to be followed, and atheists are out there. I had a lot of messages from people saying it just meant a lot to them that I was willing to say publicly that I didn't believe in God. Like that, even just that part of it. I've gotten like hundreds or even thousands of messages from people just saying like, I can't tell you, people who were, in their 50s, 60s, older, saying like, I've been, I guess, in the closet, if you could say that, about being an atheist my whole life. And because I saw you do this and I saw that you could tolerate the harassment that you received because of it, I'm thinking to myself that I could do the same. And so that kind of thing has made it all worth it.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people don't understand this, because online being an atheist is like the least brave thing imaginable. If you go on Reddit or Twitter and you proudly proclaim that you don't believe in God, like you're the bravest human on earth, But really, in person, there are many communities in this country where being an out atheist is actually like immensely destructive to a person's social life. Likewise, we don't really have atheist representation in our government. If we ever get like a front-running atheist presidential candidate, it is going to be a massive deal. It's true that a lot of people, their day-to-day life isn't affected that much by being atheist, especially if you live in like a big city. But for a lot of people, this is a legitimate civil rights issue. And your case was a civil rights case. It sounds dumb because everyone thinks like, oh, atheism, so brave. Our atheism on Reddit, YouTube, like that stuff. But really, it does mean something to a lot of people. And I appreciate you committing your time to making things a little bit easier for those people.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you have any last words of advice or something like that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I hope people hear when, they hear about my story, it's just that they would be able to do this. That if something in their school or, whatever it is, if they were to see something that gives them pause and they feel like it's probably illegal, well, first of all, follow that feeling. Like you could be right. Like you might assume that no, the government would never do that. But that's not necessarily true. This kind of stuff happens all the time. And it goes unnoticed. I mean, in the case of the prayer in my school, it was 50 years until it came down. And think about how many people were negatively affected by it in that time, you know? So I think it's important to know what resources are out there. And I think it's also just, it's a different world now. I think if anything, if I did what I did then today, if I were still somehow 16,
Mhm.
I don't think it would go the same way again today. I think there would be more resources, even more than there were then. And there were a lot. You know, there was an organization called, it's still like around, it's called the Freedom from Religion Foundation and the FRF. And I've worked with them plenty. And there's also a Secular Student Alliance, SSA. These are groups that have done a lot of work specifically with young people, students, and I know that if something like this came up, even if it ends up being something where it doesn't lead to a lawsuit, hopefully, I mean, you always hope for that,
Right.
'cause it's much easier for everyone and it costs a lot
Yeah.
less money in the end. But um, I think just to know that you're not alone, number one, and number two, I think that these groups, if more people knew about them, they would be bigger. And I think if they were bigger, the world could be a little bit better of a place. Because I am still very idealistic, despite everything that's happened to me. I still believe that there's a lot of good in people. I mean, I've seen the absolute worst that people have to offer, and I've also seen some of the most amazing gestures of support. So I mean, it really is, if you find the right community, it really is worth doing and it is doable. You know, you will have the support you need to get through it, whatever it turns into. Of
Thank you. There's
course.
one more thing that I wanted to mention before we head off and keep it to a very clean 1 hour, which makes me happy seeing the exact 1 hour. And it's I heard a rumor.
A rumor. Okay.
That somebody's
What's the
birthday
rumor?
is coming up.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. On Monday. So I'm still technically 25 and I will be 26 on Monday. So I think I did say I was 26, but okay, almost.
Just about there. We'll forgive your
Yes.
deceit.
How did you know this? Oh, it's on Wikipedia, isn't it?
It is
Yeah.
on
Okay.
Wikipedia.
Okay. I forget about that.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to anyone in your chat who has been saying that.
A good number of them. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here. I was very much looking forward to speaking with you, and it went just about as good as I could have imagined. Hopefully, we can speak again in the future.
I would love that. Yeah, I've been a big fan of yours for a while. I think you're doing great work. I wish you would have been doing this when I was going through my case, because then
I've been
you could have offered all sorts of support.
I've been a fan of yours for longer, so the feeling is
Oh,
mutual. Thank
all
you
right.
again for coming
Awesome.
on.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye. That has got to be the best interview convo that I've had on this channel. Serious? Does anything else even come close? I'm genuinely asking. Like that, at the very least, that has to be. Yeah. Whew. Yeah. No, Zoe. Yeah, Zoe Baker was very good. We're not trash talking anyone else. That was a good conversation. Yeah. Seriously, I can't believe when I got a message from her. It's like, oh wow, hello. I remember you from when I graduated high school, thereabouts. I forget the exact time period. I was young. Yeah. Bosh, you were fangirling. Good, she deserves it. You kidding me? Seriously, you kidding me? Um, uh, uh, of the people to fangirl over. I mean, jeez. Anyway, I just want to say I'm looking, by the way, at the numbers, and you guys actually stuck around for the convo. Normally, for non-contentious conversations, viewership drops off, but you guys like that convo, and I appreciate that. Thank you very, very much, all. Glad you enjoyed the conversation. She was very sweet. She's very sweet. I mean, she's very, very impressive woman. And I think that if there's any lesson to be taken from this, first and foremost, it's really that legal activism is and always has been a legitimate avenue for the pursuit of civil rights, you know? Um, I've cared about this ever since, I mean, I got into leftism basically because of the book, The Assassination of Fred Hampton. And the book is written by basically a white lawyer who did work for the Black Panther Party. And if you're familiar with the law, if you're familiar with the Constitution, if you know who to talk to, if you have the channels, if you know, if you're confident enough to navigate that system, you can do so much good. You can do an insane amount of good with that power that you have. And that's the real power, okay? The power of understanding, of knowing how our society works and how to best work within it, you know? And keep in mind, by the way, the opposition, reactionaries, and what have you, are constantly engaging in legal activism all over the country right now. At every point in time, there are reactionaries and conservatives and fascists and blah 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 who are doing everything in their power, using their connections in business, using their connections to their disproportionately wealthy fan base, using the money that they get from their sponsors to do everything they can to just make life worse. They're already doing it, and they do it very well. They do everything they can to keep their foot on the scale, and we need to do it too. I have a lot of respect for left-leaning people who engage in civil rights activism, and I have a lot of respect for the ACLU. Even though they do sometimes support bad people, they always support good causes. Sometimes bad people pursue bad things, repping the legality of a good cause, and there's nuance to that, but generally, the ACLU's commitment to civil rights litigation is admirable, should be defended, and should be celebrated. I believe that very strongly. Are there really no atheists in government? Like, basically none. Like, a representative of the population. Hold on, let me see. How many Americans are Americans by religion? I think something like 15% of Americans are agnostic or atheist. Let me see. From the Pew Forum, religion in America. Unaffiliated atheist and agnostic make up about 30% altogether. Unaffiliated is like no religion, as in for the religion question they said no. Yeah, it depends a lot on the language that's used, but you have to keep in mind, like, if presidential candidates' religions are often very heavily scrutinized. Like, for example, Mitt Romney being a Mormon, heavily scrutinized. When JFK is a Catholic, heavily scrutinized. How much did Trump Bible push, even though he's never read the Bible in his life? Stuff like that. The atheists are, it sounds dumb, but it's true. Atheists are oppressed. It sounds so dumb to say, but they really are. And I know for people who spend all their life online, it will never seem like that. But there are plenty of places you live. You think so? No, like, yeah, actually, like, factually, yes. If you live in some communities in America, like a large portion of like rural communities, and I don't want to commit to that statement, dude, it's true. There are tons of kids who are atheists, who are disowned by their parents, who are besmirched by their communities, where the only local social institution anyone's a part of is church, and they get shamed into going to church, who are told that they're going to go to hell if they don't commit back to the religious principles of their parents. They're like, yeah, I'm a closeted agnostic. If I came out, I'd basically run out of town. Yeah, this is real. It's okay to laugh at cringy atheists online. It's totally okay. I beg you, please continue to make fun of cringy atheists online, okay? Please do, okay? But don't forget that in the real world, there are places around the world and in our country where being atheist or agnostic is legitimately an axis along which people experience real oppression, often young people, for similar reasons to like LGBTQ youth, you know? because like hardline social conservatism means that you can get excised from your family and your community if you're the wrong things. Yeah. In America, it's better than a lot of other places. Plenty of places around the world where it'd be much more of a problem, but my mom was more accepting of me being gay as long as I kept loving God. Yeah. Again, just remember, it's okay to make fun of cringy atheists online, but also remember that there's some stuff going on there that's real, you know? That's it. We don't need to be like super cringy atheism preachers or anything like that. But you know what you should be? Passionate advocates for your civil rights. A la the conversation we just had. That was a really, really great interview. I'm really happy with how that went. I have some stuff I need to do. People donated. I'll get to that at the beginning of next stream, which will be at 5 p.m. tomorrow. We're going to play some Binding of Isaac and also have a lot of fun, which we always do. And you should all turn up for those streams. I love you all very much. Everyone take care. I know, I'm sorry. I got to do stuff. I love you very much and have a wonderful day.